Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. I'm joined by a couple of fresh faces today on this episode after a thrilling game at the Amex between us and Brentford. So, first of all, before we get into the episode, let's introduce who we've got here today. So, Dan, who recently joined our team, has done some wonderful bits of editing for us and for me. So, thank you very much for that, Dan. Dan, your
My
first
pleasure.
appearance on Albion Obsessed. You've been a long time listener. Happy to be here.
Buzzing, mate. Yeah, really, really happy. Yeah, long time listener, as you say, since more or less I think when you started. So yeah, over the moon to be introduced into the crew.
And what better way to be introduced? Today is our 100th episode, guys. So you're joining us on a very special occasion today.
What a milestone that is.
I know. I'm absolutely buzzing with it. I never thought it would get this far, but here we are. And we also joined by Eamonn, who is a Brentford fan. Eamonn, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for welcoming me.
No problem at all. It's always good to get an opposition perspective on the game. So I'm sure the Albion fans would be more than happy to listen to what you've got to say. Now, Dan, you've watched this podcast before. You know what's about to happen. When we've got a new Albion guest on, we ask them 3 questions. And the first of those questions, Dan, is, do you remember your first game, your actual first live game, not watching on the TV in the stadium?
Yeah. I do. It's actually not too difficult for me to recall because I'm going to have to out myself here as a bit of a new fan to the club. The first game I went to live was actually in 2018. Okay. So I only really been watching live for 5 years or so. But it was the Southampton Cup game. I think it was the Carabao Cup. But it was, yeah, it was absolutely dreadful. It was really, really poor, really bad football from both sets of teams, from both sets of players. And I think we lost 1-0 to, I think maybe Redmond in like the 89th minute. And it was just diabolical. It was really, really poor. I'd been watching prior to that, but that was my first live game. So,
and at that point, seeing diabolical football, he fell in love. There you go. What a love story.
Yeah.
Dan, it doesn't matter when you start supporting the club, mate. It really doesn't. The one thing I absolutely hate in football is gatekeeping. Whether you've been an Albion fan for 2 minutes, whether you've been an Albion fan for 70 years, you're still supporting the club. So, no, fair play to you, mate.
Yeah.
Who's been your favourite player to watch then over the years?
I mean, it's got to be Knockout, right?
It down to one. Yeah.
Anthony. I mean, for me, it's got to be Anthony. I mean, he because I started watching back around sort of 2010. Didn't get any tickets till about 2018, just because, I'd never. My parents weren't football parents. I only started watching it when I met my now wife. I watched it with her dad, and he supported Brighton. So I was kind of there the whole way through that kind of those initial playoff defeats against Palace in 2013. I say there, I mean on the sofa. I was there in spirit. But the one player that really captured me and captured my attention was Knockout. He was just a magician, right? He was just an absolute wizard. The ball stuck to his feet like glue. He could go around as many people as he wanted to go around, and some of his finishes were just top draw.
Yeah, absolutely loved watching Anthony, and it was a shame it didn't quite work out for him for us in the Premier League. But we do have that wonderful goal at Selhurst Park to remember him by.
Never forget that.
Even Glenn Murray was shocked that he scored it. So love it. So Dan, I love football shirts. I absolutely adore them. So I love this question. What has been your favourite Albion shirt of all time?
Favorite shirt of all time? I mean, it's got to be, I think, it's the 85, 86 home shirt, the Adidas one with Phoenix Brewery across the front. I just love the simplicity of it. It's a beautiful royal blue. It's got the little white pinstripes across the stomach, got the big stripes across the shoulders, Adidas badge there. It's just beautiful. And I'm really, really hoping we get Adidas back. I've seen some conflicting things about whether we're staying with Nike for another season or if we're going to find someone new. But whenever we find someone new, I really desperately hope we go for Adidas, just because that shirt is beautiful.
to be honest, anything but Nike at the moment.
Yeah.
We're so sick of their shirts, just template after template.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Mm.
Eamonn, Brentford have Umbro. I'm quite a fan of Umbro's kits. What have you made of Brentford's kits over the years? Obviously, with stripes, you can only
Yeah.
sort of go
Yeah,
one
you can only
way,
go so
really.
far. You know, make them wider, make them thinner, or whatever.
Yeah.
I must admit, when I heard you asking Dan that question, my heart sort of sunk. I'm not really a kit nerd. As far as I'm concerned, any player who wears the shirt that's got the Brentford badge on is good enough for me. What they're wearing is slightly secondary. Yeah, I do like style wise. Looking at me, I'm not a style merchant, but an Adidas kit is always smart in my opinion, and we have had Adidas kits. I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to fail on this question.
No, it's fine.
It literally is. It's red and white stripes for me.
Exactly that.
That's fine. You know.
Fair enough. Yeah. So let's talk then, Eamonn, a little bit about your history as a Brentford fan. So have you been going since you were a kid, or
sort of in my teens? I think it was. I hate to do this. 1975, 76. I think it was my first game. It was a home game against Exeter City, probably in the bottom tier, and we won 5-1. And I thought, this is it. The rest is easy. And probably for about the next 5 or so years, we spent in the bottom tier, and it wasn't easy. So that's where I started.
Okay, fair enough. Are you a season ticket holder?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Loving the new stadium. I
am. Yeah, very much so. We've got very nice seats in the north stand. Tried to slightly replicate where we sat in the old ground. As in,
was it?
Go on, sorry.
Was it conflicted feelings when you knew you was getting a new ground, or was it the natural progression of the club that you knew?
Yeah, we had to do it. The facilities at Griffin Park, and it literally is from my house. I'm pointing over there. It's probably about 600 yards away from my house.
Wow. Oh wow!
Yeah, and I can hear the machinery knocking down the main stand last week, where the seats I sat, and my family sat with me and friends. Yeah, we had to. You know, if you wanted to do any sort of hospitality there, you first of all went into an area underneath the stand, and then you had something to eat and a drink, and then you came out, went up a series of steps, almost like going up a ladder, and you ended up with seats, decent view, but your knees were tucked up to your chin, sort of thing. And at half time, to get your cup of tea, you came all the way back down again, etc. So there was no view of the pitch from your hospitality. That's just one factor. Yes, it was our ground, you know, and it was great. It had massive memories. But to move on in this day and age, with our improvement on the pitch, you need those facilities. Much as I loved the old ground, we needed to move on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And your season so far, I mean, I've admired Brentford for as long as they've been promoted to the Premier League. They've, you know, taken it by storm, and some of your games that I've watched have been just scintillating football.
Yeah.
I remember one against Liverpool, which was just ridiculous. I can't remember when it was. Might have even been this season or last. But
we drew 3-3 last season, and we beat them 3-1 at home this season.
It was this season then, because I remember you winning, and it was just mesmerizing. And Thomas Frank as well. I've got massive respect for him as a coach. I think he's great to listen to. So let's talk about your season so far. And of course, you're in a European charge as much as we are. So
we could.
What are your aims for the end of the season? What would be a successful season for Brentford?
Top half finish, an improvement on last. I think we were 13th last season. Top half finish. Yeah, it would be nice to flirt with the European. I'm sure you guys are aware. You're up for it as well. The difficulties that brings with it. You know, you're playing an Albanian waiters 11 on a Thursday. You've got to do all the journey there and back. Your game is never going to be on a 3 o'clock on a Saturday. You're playing Sunday afternoon, Monday, Tuesday, whatever. So, yes, wouldn't it be great if either both of us were in Europe next season? It would be a right up yours to some of the alleged bigger clubs. But with it comes the My son always hits the nail on the head. Do the Premier League for a couple of years, do a season in Europe, and then we'll go back to the Championship. No, we don't want that at all. But, with success comes other issues, shall we say. In answer to your question, as high as we'll finish as high as we possibly can. We'll be going for it right till the death.
Yeah, exactly that. And I always find that we have a lot of fans as well that say, "Oh, I miss the Championship. I miss the Championship." And we've seen other clubs, Wolves, Burnley, people like that make Europe in the last few seasons, and it hasn't necessarily helped them. So you're right, it does bring a lot of challenges, and whether Brentford or Brighton have the squad depth to deal with that, who knows? But of course, it would help attract more players to the club as well. So if either or get there, then fantastic, wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Dan, what's been your perspective on Brentford over the Premier League years of, I think it's been 3 seasons now, has it, Eamonn? Or 2?
This is our second.
2 seasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been magical, hasn't it, Dan?
Yeah, it's just been so good. It's been just incredible to see, a team that doesn't have, a team that doesn't necessarily have, the huge wealth that some of these other teams have. It doesn't have, the huge name. It's not like a Newcastle. It's not like a Manchester United, and it's going up. And you're just doing incredibly well, really, in the Premier League. You're taking the game to these bigger clubs, and you're playing them off the park, over and over again. I think it was you beat United 4-0. I think, was it this season or last season?
Yeah, we hit them at the right time. You'd beaten them 2-1, I believe, at the start of the very first game. We played in the second game and beat them 4-0. They were shell shocked. I mean, sorry to interrupt, but they Ten Hag, I think, is a decent manager, and we've got Man U away on Wednesday, so I'm going up to Manchester for that one. But when we played them, you'd beaten them 2-1. I mean, Maguire, he still gets picked for England, but let's not dwell on that one. But he wasn't at the races, and they had the eternal problem they had was Cristiano Ronaldo.
Oh yeah,
massively. Cristiano says where he wants to play. So you can't pick a team. Cristiano almost picks the team. Fantastic player, but you could see it in his body language during the game and when he stormed off at the end of our game. We played them at the absolute right time, as I think you guys did.
Well, yeah. You can only play who's in front of you, but it's still an incredible scalp to have, right?
Yeah.
To beat them so convincingly, those world-class players. Yeah. It's just incredible. But I'm a great admirer of Brentford generally.
This is going to be loving because I'm similar to your style of football, and I assume we will come on later to yesterday's game. But I had a conversation in your fan zone area with a Brighton fan who was very complimentary. And he said to me, his words were something on the lines of, can you imagine 10 years ago that we would be playing you in the Premier League?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think back. Now, somebody put it up on one of our sites. I think 10 years ago, we were playing MK Dons. Yeah, I know. Let's not. I mean, nothing against MK Dons.
Yeah,
but,
of course not. No,
that's where we were. God, I don't know where you guys were 10 years ago, but not in the Premier League.
Roughly the same.
Yeah,
roughly the same. I remember a time hop came up on my Facebook, and the middle of March, and it was 8 years ago when we were playing MK Dons away, Chris Hughton's second season or first full season with us. And that was when we were on our slight promotion charge, but didn't quite get there and had to endure the bloody playoffs again. And then the season after that went up. But and not only to be playing us versus you in the Premier League, but to also be looking at other people's results like Manchester City versus Liverpool and it having an impact on where our season might go. That to me is the nuts part. And I think for both teams yesterday it was very much a must not lose game rather than a must win. So
I carried on the conversation with the guy who was speaking to me, and I said, look, you're absolutely right. I couldn't have imagined it, but we've both gone about it the right way. Here, the loving continues, but we've both gone about it the right way. You know, we haven't sports washed or whatever the phrase is, and cut this one out if you want. But you know, Manchester City, Newcastle, they can do one. They've bought their way to where they are. There's no two ways about it. You know, you're not owned by an individual. You're owned by a frigging state. You know, in the case of Newcastle, etc. And in my opinion, again, cut this one out if you want, but the FA need to do something about it. Fit and properness. So on the day last season that Manchester City played Newcastle, whichever ground it was at, might have been Newcastle, Man City, 81 people were executed out in one of their owners' states. You know, I don't know what crimes they'd committed, but, you know, come on. We've moved on from that. And that is why I have a little bit of a loathing of those type of clubs. And absolute praise for you guys. You know, we've both gone about it the right way.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Jay. Well, I was just going to say I know Brighton's owned by a guy called Tony Bloom. I forget the name of the guy who owns your club, but
Matthew Benham, a good mate.
Matthew Benham. Yeah, I was going to say they're besties, right?
They worked for each other. I don't know who worked for whom. There was a falling out, and that's why Tony Bloom always goes, when he comes to the Brentford ground, instead of going to the director's box, he goes in with the Brighton fans.
With the away, which is amazing, right? How many owners of football clubs do you see sitting with the other away fans? Just incredible. But it's, you know, they are very similar in that they both rely very heavily on stats and scouting and stuff like that. So rather than just going, oh, I know the name of that football player over there, let's get them in. They look at all these underlying statistics, and it's just incredible.
You don't mean Chelsea in that, do you?
Chelsea's recruitment strategy is just buy whoever Brighton's got.
I'll interrupt. Mudryk, we put in a bid at the beginning of the season. Shakhtar Donetsk, I think he was at, for 10 million, which is an incredible amount of money for us. 10 million. They went, no, hold on a second, we want a bit more than that. Apparently, allegedly, we went up to 12. When the word got out, Arsenal started looking. Why are they going for him? Their recruitment is good. So Arsenal put in bigger bids. We got outbid. Arsenal put in bigger bids. And then at the last minute, Chelsea come along. Put a massive great bid in.
Yeah.
Now, not be funny, he's your ex-manager, Graham Potter. How many of those players that Chelsea have got did he actually buy? Did he actually sanction to buy?
0.
Yeah.
I can say that now. Happily, 0. And so the thing is, like, I'm very much over the bitterness towards Graham Potter as a Brighton fan. Like, I just simply don't really care anymore. But in terms of the human side, you have to feel sorry for him because he's not turned into a rubbish coach overnight. He's gone into a club where, my God, he's got one hell of a bloody job on his hands to keep however many egos in the right way. And it's just clear to see that from the start, it was never going to work. Who am I to say that it might not work in the future? But I think he's under immense pressure. And I think he needs a project club, but Chelsea are a win now club.
Yeah, of course they are.
They need a win now manager. So maybe Conte goes back there and Potter goes to a project club of Tottenham. Who knows? But yeah, that's my little prediction for what might happen.
Yeah, the good thing, both of you, is that it's not our problem. It's not our club slightly. You lost Potter, who was a very good manager for your good selves. But it's not at the moment. It's not our problem. We've both got, in my opinion, decent managers, and long may it continue. Although Leicester parted company with Brendan Rodgers earlier today, so the odds are already saying that Thomas Frank may be considered.
Why on earth would he go there?
Exactly.
That is mental. That really is. So, guys, let's talk about the game. So there was one surprise, Dan, in Brighton's starting 11 and squad, really. Evan Ferguson didn't make the squad. Apparently, there's a knock from international duty. A lot of Brighton fans were saying this is why we hate international duty, and maybe why people are happy that Solly March didn't get picked, Lewis Dunk didn't get picked, etc. Was you gutted to see that Evan Ferguson wasn't in the squad at all?
I was. You know, I'm one of those guys that, you know, I love Welbeck. but he hasn't, and he proved me wrong pretty swiftly over the course of the game. But he hasn't been on great scoring form. His general play is very, very good, but I don't think he holds a candle at the moment. Holds a light to Ferguson. Ferguson's just on fire. He scored a brace against Grimsby. He scoring for fun in the other games. He scored on his debut against who are they playing? For Ireland anyway. I forget who they're playing.
Latvia.
But Latvia, right? But I mean, a great goal, and he's a great goal scorer. So I thought we are going to struggle without that out and out goal scorer. We haven't got a target man because we're generally pretty good at putting balls in the box. Welbeck's good, but is he as good as Ferguson at getting up and getting the ball in the net? I don't think so. So I was really upset to see the fact that he wasn't even on the bench. I was left me a bit worried.
I slightly echo that as well. Much as I like to watch the better players, and I hadn't seen young Ferguson play, but I'm hearing very good things. So I was quite pleased he wasn't playing. Question: I'm being slightly mischievous. Is he going to be another Aaron Connolly?
I don't think so. I think that. And this isn't towards you, Eamonn, absolutely, because I think that's a slightly lazy comparison, because what we've got is we've got two young Irish strikers that have hit the ground running. But I think when you look at Evan Ferguson and when you watch what he's said, when you sort of understand the person he is, I don't think he would come anywhere near what Aaron Connolly was getting up to.
Well, I've got a couple of friends who are Brighton fans and season ticket holders, and I was told a good few years ago, the young lad, Aaron Connolly, watch out for that name. He's playing goals in for fun in the reserves under 21s.
Yeah.
And I know the history. He suddenly got a little bit big-headed, I believe.
Yeah, he scored 2 goals against Spurs, and that was pretty much it, other than sporadic cup games and maybe a couple of other Premier League goals. But the guy got a little bit, as you said, a little bit too big-headed. And I find it again not by your comment, Eamonn, but when Brighton fans talk about the comparison between Connolly and Ferguson, rather disrespectful towards what Ferguson is setting out to do, because I think through his whole career, he's very young career, he's been very honest about what he wants to achieve in the game, and he's proven that under a fantastic manager in Roberto De Zerbi, who's put the faith in so many youngsters this season. And it really is a case of the sky is the limit for him, and it obviously you can get overrun with the hype of young players. Absolutely, it happens all the time. But when you see a guy like this who plays in such a mature way, you can't help but be excited, because not only is he amazing in the box, as Dan said, a great target man, but he also drops deep and he also links up play, and he's also so energetic and helping the team out when we're in rough patches. So I absolutely love that about him. Whereas Aaron Connolly was more I'm going to wait on the last defender and see if he can get the ball to me.
Okay.
So I really, really respect the way Evan Ferguson's gone about it, and I've got massive, massive hopes for him. Whether that comes to fruition, who knows? But let's talk about the Brentford starting 11. Eamonn, was there any surprises in there for you?
No real surprises. We've got a couple of injuries, so we're missing a couple of players. I think Christopher wasn't in the starting lineup. Pontus Jansson was back, our club captain. I was a little bit concerned. I love the guy to bits, but I was aware of your mobility, especially up front. And Pontus opened the scoring for us, but I think he was a little bit. He could have done better at times in our defence, and that is in no way knocking him. He's been very good this season. No, so in answer to your question, other than that, no real surprises. It was a starting lineup. It didn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, it's perfect that you pointed out Pontus Jansson, because, as you say, he did open the scoring, and Dan, Brighton were pretty much asleep from a Brentford throw-in, and a ball comes into the box, a fantastic ball in, and our defence, Lewis Dunk, sort of just watches it happen, and Pontus Jansson is there to thump home. Really, little bit disappointed with how our defence went to sleep a few times in that first half.
I was, yeah. I mean, I was watching it. I couldn't get down yesterday, so I was watching it from the comfort of my home, and it was a real shame to see everyone just almost switch off, really, from a throw-in. And we haven't seen it too often with our defence just switching off. More so this season than perhaps previous seasons, but to switch off to such an extent where Dunk was pretty much just watching it go in. Jansson got in front of Dunk, and there wasn't really anything Dunk could do.
Sorry, Dan, can I interrupt slightly there? I mean, obviously there were 6 goals shared between us. 2 of ours were. I'm putting the first one down as almost a set piece. It was a throw in, played back to Jensen, who lobbed it in for Jansson.
Great goal.
Sort of set piecey type goal. The third one was the free kick. Apparently, you're a little bit susceptible on set plays.
Absolutely are.
It's not knocking you guys, but
what I found yesterday was, especially the first goal. I watched the highlights back because I was in the north stand behind the goal. So I didn't really. I had a very crowded view of it.
Sure.
So what I found when I watched the highlights back was we were still organising our defence. When that ball was coming into the box, Lewis Dunk was still looking at other people and pointing.
Sure.
So there has to be a clear plan of because Brentford, as I understand it, are very good at set pieces. With your huge centre backs, especially Ben Mee, who's been wonderful this season. I always find it very confusing as to why we haven't got a plan already for all eventualities of your set pieces, because surely there's analysis that goes on. And I found it extremely frustrating.
Well, we're both stats driven. You would have thought that we'd look at things like that, but
exactly. So from our point of view, very frustrating this season with set pieces, because I was going to bring it up later in the game, but I'm going to bring it up now because it's a perfect little segue. Dan, we have 14 corners yesterday, and I don't actually think we posed a threat from one of them.
No, well,
correct me if I'm wrong.
There were a couple that we should have scored from. So I think I forget which minute it was, but a really good corner in, straight onto Colwell's head, and just inches over the bar. I think Dunk had another one, which again, great header, got up so high, and just inches over the bar. So it's just so frustrating. And I actually did a bit of research on this before I came on, because it's something I wanted to sort of raise. Was I think the average conversion rate for a corner is like 5%, 4-5%, something like that. We've had 166 corners this season. We've scored, I think, 2 or 3. We should have scored about, and I've noted this down here, we should have scored something like 8 or 9 goals from corners. And it's just so frustrating, because we've got these big guys in Dunk, Colwill, Veltman, Welbeck, I was going to say as well, and we never seem to get anything out of a corner. I think we've the first goal we scored from a corner this season was an own goal. Second goal, I can't remember who got it in. Might have been Webster maybe, but it's so frustrating, because coming from the years of Duncan Duffy under Houghton, scoring goals for fun from corners, to now scoring hardly any, it's just frustrating, and especially with so many corners yesterday.
We were our Joe. I think we were our own worst enemies. We gave you the best chances for the corners, not just giving them away, but the ball into the box, and we couldn't clear it to save our lives at times. David Raya, he was given man of the match by our supporters, but he hardly came for anything properly. I know you've got players. Welbeck was doing a good job of getting in front of him, or trying to get in front of him. But we were our own worst enemies at times. But Anyway,
I mean, I think you mentioned Raya. I think he had 11 saves from our 14 shots on target. Again, a really good segue for me to bring this up, Dan. The Premier League posted a stat which I found absolutely fascinating. That the Albion became the first team in Premier League history to have all 10 outfield starters register 2 attempts on goal. I said to my dad on the way back from the game that I wasn't overly concerned by the performance of the game, where it was so sort of up and down, because we created 33 chances as such. And I said to my dad that the moment that I'll be concerned is when we're not creating these chances.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
As always. But that stat is just ridiculous. And for us to be the first team to do it, does that just go to show exactly what Roberto De Zerbi is doing at this football club?
Yeah, I mean, it as you say, it does show exactly what he's trying to do. You know, from day one, we knew that it was going to be high risk, high reward with him. We knew we'd probably concede more goals than we did under Potter or Houghton, but we knew we'd score a hell of a lot more as well. And I hadn't actually seen that stat. But it's just incredible. You know, it's just, it goes to show what he's trying to do. He's just getting everyone to be as fluid as possible, moving around as much as they can, getting between the lines, and making the runs. And it's just incredible to see that level of fluidity and that kind of dedication to getting people forwards and just taking a shot. Because again, in previous seasons,
Sorry, go on, Dan. No, you
I was just going to say, in previous seasons, we've struggled with people taking shots. You know, we've wanted people to take a shot a little bit more. So it's really refreshing and really nice to see people actually doing it now.
Yeah. Let's stay on the positivity train at the moment, because that's going to end in a little while. So let's talk about another record that was broken. So Jason Steele sends Kaoru Mitoma through on goal to score our equaliser, and that's made him the Japanese player to score the most goals in a single season, still with a good few games to go, which is fantastic for Kaoru. Now, I saw another funny stat that Jason Steele has more goal involvements than £87 million Mikhailo Mudryk. And I understand that he's not maybe had enough Premier League minutes to up that, but Jason Steele's a goalkeeper and he's played 3 Premier League games. So it's what it is. Also, the same amount of goal contributions as Neil Maupay, who left for bigger and better things, apparently.
Yeah, it's a step up, isn't it, Everton?
It's what it is. Eamonn, you know Neil Maupay very well, don't you?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, absolute hero of mine. By virtue of the fact, I'll tell you, I won't bore you too long with it. We played Dirty Leeds away, and we got a penalty. Ollie Watkins got taken down in the area, and it was in front of their fans. It was away at Elland Road. Neil Maupay steps up, takes the penalty, and walks towards their fans with his arms out like that. He gets he gets more money than he's ever got in his life. So we have the return game. It ends up as a 1-1 draw. We have the return game at our place. After about 10 minutes, ball over the top. Neil's on the end of it. He's through 1-on-1 with their keeper in front of their fans. Dinks it past him, back of the net, straight away in front of their fans like that. He gets more money chucked at him. Everything's chucked at him. He then, we do a service to football. We let him go to your good selves. One of the games during lockdown, away at Leeds United, behind closed doors. He scores and he stands in front of the empty stand like that. You know, that man is a massive hero of mine.
You know, we joke about Neil Maupay on this podcast a few times, but you know, for his attitude on the football pitch and what he gave you, a lot of people say he's an idiot, but he's our idiot. Like with Joey Barton, that was said a lot when he was at like Burnley as such. But with Neil, it was very much you'd want someone like that on your team, because he just riles them up. And I remember a game in lockdown as well with Arsenal. It was the first game back, and he apparently injured Leno, but he didn't. And that there was a massive fight at the end of that game. Guendouzi grabbed him by the neck, and
that's right.
Yeah, it was all sorts. But
another great story of Neil Maupay. We played Queens Park Rangers away, and an evening kickoff. might have been the one. It was a 2-2 draw. And after the game, I think it was Mark Warburton in charge of us at the time. He said to Mark Warburton, "I want to leave early. I'll do the shower and all this, have the chat afterwards. But I want to leave. I'm meeting my partner at Westfield in Shepherd's Bush. Class guys are Neil. Westfield, Shepherd's Bush.
Oh, lovely.
Anyway, and he had his Brentford tracksuit on, and Warburton, whoever was in charge, said, "Whoa, Neil, you can't go out like that in Shepherd's Bush." And Neil Maupay's reply allegedly was, "You haven't seen me fight." So that's why we love Neil Maupay.
There you go.
Yeah.
A little bit of Neil Maupay loving on the
Yeah.
podcast. I know one of our own, Chloe, will absolutely adore that because she was Neil Maupay's biggest fan. So I'm glad that we've got a little bit of Neil love in there. So Dan, let's stay on the point of Kaoru Mitoma, because he's been spoken about a lot, but we're going to speak about him again. He's broken a Japanese record in the Premier League. I think ahead of Shinji Kagawa, I want to say, possibly. Correct me, guys, if that's incorrect.
Right. Yeah, I'm not really up on the Japanese Premier League footballers. But...
could have been Okazaki for Leicester, but I'm not sure.
Most
likely Kagawa. But anyway, how good is that for a guy that 4 years ago was playing university football and now he's lighting up the Premier League?
Yeah, I mean, his rise has just been meteoric. It's been so good to see. And we could arguably say he's the best Japanese player of all time. It's I don't want to shout it too loudly, but the Premier League is arguably one of the most difficult leagues in the world to play in, and he's now scored the most goals. So there is a case for it. But it's just amazing to see him do so well after writing a thesis on how to dribble past your opponents, to then playing university football, to then I can't remember where he was before he was at Union, but then playing for Union,
Japan,
playing for Union in that incredible title charge. Unfortunately, didn't quite make it in the end. But being a key player for them in Europe, and then coming to the Premier League, I wasn't entirely sure he would be able to hit the ground running. I thought his stats for Union were good, but they weren't incredible, right? But he's just done so incredibly well. It's just a joy to watch him play.
Yeah, definitely. Eamonn, what was your view on that goal yesterday? It all happened very quickly. As I say, it came from our goalkeeper, Jason Steele, and then Kaoru was through and chipping Raya. So
right in front of me. I will just add, I thought Mitoma was one of the best players I've seen this season. 100%. He had our fullback or wing back, Aaron Hickey, who's a good player. He had him on toast. Completely. Yeah, it was a great ball. The ball was arcing. It wasn't arcing. It was spearing its way directly towards me, and there was only one winner. There's an element. Was David Reyes, could he have rushed out? He'd have had to risk a handball if or sending off if he handballed it out the area. Allegedly, there was a couple of our players were throwing their arms up in the air at Raya for not coming out, but I didn't really notice that. I wasn't applauding, but I was almost, it was a good goal. And Mitoma was fantastic yesterday.
Very, very, very high praise given the players that Brentford have come up against as well. So it's great to hear.
Massively, I'd call it like it is. If I go to a game, I will be as complimentary about an opposition player as I am of one of my own. I'm of that age where I'm not blinkered at he wore a blue and white shirt. I'm not going to acknowledge him or anything like that. But there we go.
Yeah,
very good.
But
player.
I think the thing that's great though is that we're Brighton fans. You're a Brentford fan, but we're also football fans. So I think it's crazy to not appreciate sometimes the players on the opposition, because I've watched people like Kevin De Bruyne play against us and just own the park, and it's like you just have to look at it and go, blooming heck, what are we watching? But the Kaoru Mitoma loving didn't last long. I was still celebrating the goal, and Tony had the ball in the back of the net. Damn, what on earth happened?
It's just like watching Brighton of old. We concede, we switch off, we concede. We score, we switch off, we concede almost immediately. The second that came from a throw-in, didn't it? Again,
It came from
Well,
our throw on. It came
from
from
our
our
throw
throw
on.
on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because Dunk was really far back. I mean, Tony just took advantage of that completely. You know, he knew that he could stand what would have been miles offside, but because Dunk was so far back, he wasn't offside. He just took advantage. He had no one with him. Just took it under control really nicely. And yeah, took the goal. Scored
possibly
it.
little bit surprised that we actually won a ball in the midfield. I think that's what shocked a few people.
I think it was Pontus Janssen that won the header.
I think
right?
it went to. I might be wrong. I thought it went to Matthias Jensen, who put it on to Brian and Waymo, who then possibly. I got that the wrong way around, but logically, where they are on the pitch, it should be Jensen onto Brian and then onto Ivan, who it fell into his path nicely.
Yeah.
What I always find funny about the away end, when the opposition's scoring the North Stand goal, is the delay in the celebration. Like your players were already running off celebrating. 2 seconds later, whee! It's like, okay, there they go. But I'm guessing you were absolutely delighted with your team's response, Eamonn.
Massively, yeah. You got to be. You know, was it 2-2 at half time, and everyone around us is going, "There's more goals in this." You know, it's 6-6. You know, sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting one. If I can lob this one at you, as I was coming out, walking up the steps to where the coaches are, a Brighton fan said to me, "Oh, looks good for both of us this season." I turned around and said, "Yeah, cheers." And he said, "If you had a defence, you'd be really dangerous." And I said, "Well, 2 of our defenders scored goals today." And he turned to me and he said, "Well, they should have been bloody well defending, shouldn't they?" And my reply was, "You let 3 goals in, so I just thought this was random." But, sorry, in answer to the thing that we were saying, I don't think either defence covered themselves in massive glory. You seem to be a little bit wide open. You were asleep the first goal. Not wide open, but Ivan had enough time to get that ball down. I mean, I won't go on. I will go on if you want, but the one that annoyed me most was Welbeck's header. Lovely ball through a shot.
Solly March again.
Yeah, but in between 2 of our players, and one of you get near him, please, and hey ho.
What I found mesmerising about the Solly March cross was his little body feint as he went past the Brentford defender, and Solly has been absolutely magical this season. Another goal involvement for Solly, Dan, and what a ball in to Welbeck, who at the top of the show you were not very complimentary of, but gets the goal and proves you wrong, mate.
Honestly, yeah, I was so happy that he had proved me wrong. Because I like him. His general play is great, as I was saying earlier. He just hasn't been scoring some of the goals he should have scored. So to see him rise so high and find that little space between the defenders, I'm not sure which of the Brentford defenders it was, but it was just fantastic. It was a really, really nice header. Down past Raya. Fantastic. And what a ball from Solly March as well. Yeah, he's been absolutely on fire this season.
Exactly. And the response was 6 minutes after Brentford's goal. So we were just exchanging blows left, right, and centre. So, Eamonn, at half time, you've already mentioned a few of the comments that you heard. But did you feel 2-2 was the fair scoreline?
Yeah, on the way the play had gone, and say some of our attempts at defending. Yeah, definitely. And could easily see more goals in the game.
Yeah, definitely. The next goal didn't take very long after the break, though, did it? I think it was 4 minutes. Now, Dan, I'm going to come to you on this one first, because there's something that really, really riled me about how we defended that goal, especially. And I don't want to single out players, because I feel that's quite unfair to do, because it is at the end of the day a team effort. But when criticism is there to be had, I think you have to give it. Estupiñán. Now I imagine when you're learning to be a defender as a youngster, the simple advice is get goal side. Pinnock finds himself way ahead of him, and Estupiñán's like scrambling to get back. Do you feel he should have been a bit stronger there? And would you? And again, I don't want to pin it on one sole person, but should he have been doing better there?
I think he should have been. I think there's a shout for Caldwell potentially getting a bit closer as well, because Pinnock just found the space between the two. It was clear that no one was going to be picking him up, effectively anyway. So yeah, I mean, for me, he should have done a lot better there, Stupinian. I mean, how much of that can you put down to fatigue? Because he's obviously been playing quite a lot for Ecuador over the international break, but then I mean, so's Caicedo, right? Caicedo ran the midfield yesterday almost. He was absolutely incredible, as he always is. Yeah. But I don't know. For me, Estupinian has to do better. I don't know.
It just frustrates me when you see like the basics of football not being led by Premier League footballers. It was just so frustrating to watch that back again. It happened miles away from me. I didn't see it at the time, but when I watched the highlights back, it really frustrated me when I saw Estupinian not quite dealing with that very well. Now, Eamonn, what does Thomas Frank say to players before games and at half time? Because you lot come flying out the blocks.
Straight answer. I have no idea, but whatever he says, there was I think it was when we played Bournemouth. It was live on Sky, and they had cameras everywhere, including trying to interview some of our players going off the pitch at half time. I was actually at the game, so I didn't see this till afterwards. But they had cameras in the changing rooms at half time. And I don't think you could hear what was being said. But Thomas Frank has the players all sat down, and he is just literally talking to them. He's not lecturing them. Yes, I think we were 1-0 up at the time and looking good, and we won the game. But the contrast to the opposition changing room, they had players doing keepy-uppies in their bare feet, and the manager was talking. Half of them are trying to get drinks and stuff like this. In answer to your question, I have no idea what he says. We do normally start, on the front foot. I was a little bit surprised that he didn't make a change at half-time because, as I said earlier, Mitoma was having a very good game against Hickey. And we had another lad, Roslev, who's slightly quicker. Who might have had an effect. They play in a similar sort of position. I was surprised that Roslev didn't come on. So, but in answer to your initial question, I have no idea what he says, but having met and spoken to Thomas Frank, he's a very calm individual. Very rarely do you see him histrionics on the touchline or anything like that. So whatever he said, he would have said calmly and got his point across.
Yeah, I think you had both ends of the spectrum on the touchline yesterday, as you say. Thomas Frank, extremely composed, but Roberto De Zerbi certainly does not let his feelings go unheard.
What nationality is De Zerbi? Sorry, I should know this.
He's Italian, so the passion runs deep. I'd imagine now you quite understand why it's the way he is. But, as Brighton fans, because we had a stark contrast from how Graham Potter conducted himself on the touchline. I'm not saying it's the wrong way, but watching De Zerbi is just unbelievably entertaining. And he's had 2 touchline bans in the last 3 months, I want to say. So yeah, that goes to show you just what sort of coach Roberto De Zerbi is. But he's getting the best out of us, so we love it. As you say, your second defender to score in the game. Unlikely sources, but Pinnock is always a player that impresses me. What have you made of your defenders' contributions this season? Because, as I say, Ben Mee's been fantastic. Two goals yesterday for 2 defenders. So it's great that goals for you guys are coming from all sorts of different areas on the pitch.
Yeah, very much so. Just on our defence, we are chipping in, especially with whether we play 2 centre backs or the 3 centre backs. Again, ridiculous statement. Doesn't matter to me who scores the goals, but it's nice that they're shared around. Yes, Ivan Toney's got a lot. Just on the defence though, when we brought Ben Mee in, we had a couple of we had a gap in the not a massive gap, but a bit of a gap in the defence. And obviously we picked up Ben Mee on a free transfer or minimal. And I was thinking, everyone refers to him as because he played under Sean Dyche Burnley as Hard Brexit Ben Mee, and that nickname has stuck. Imagine what I'm talking about with the Burnley side. But Ben Mee has been fantastic this season, absolutely fantastic. Ethan Pinnock is what's the one they say? Ron Seal just does what it says on the tin. You put him in there. You can say to Ethan, "Do you play a little bit over on the left today? Play on the right today." He'll do it, and he'll get on with it. More than happy. It's like complaint if you want. We let 3 goals in yesterday. That's not very nice sort of thing. But and we were a little bit 6 and 7s at times in the penalty. But in answer to your question, massively happy with our defence this season. And I've missed out a couple of people. Christoph Ayer, Rico Henry. You guys moan about Lewis Dunk not getting a call up to the England squad. Well, come on, you've already said he played under Chris Hughton. How old is that man? Rico's only a youngster because we haven't got enough left-sided. Do we play left-sided players at right back for England or right-sided players at left? I'd never know what Gareth's doing.
God knows. Your guess is as good as ours.
Harry Maguire gets a game though most times. So
yes. How does Harry Maguire get an England call up when, as you say, Ben Mee is performing so magnificently? And obviously, we're going to talk about Lewis Dunk. But taking off my Brighton tinted glasses, Ben Mee has been, one of the best English defenders in the Premier League this season, without a question. Yeah. And still Harry Maguire's there. But that's a whole new thing.
We need another hour for that.
Part of me, just going back on the internationals. So you guys had players playing out in Australia, 12-hour difference and 12-hour flight or something this very week. So we had Aaron Hickey playing for Scotland against Spain, Ivan Toney playing 10 minutes for England, only at Wembley. So not exactly a lot of time difference between Brighton and Wembley, but so we had a couple of the Danish midfielders were playing sort of thing. So I'm quite happy in a way that Ben Mee isn't called up, that Rico's not called up. So quite happy to sit back and let them rest.
Absolutely.
And,
helps your cause for what you want to do this season. So that's completely fair enough. So I think it's fair to say that after Brentford scored, we had a severe period of domination from Brighton, looking for that equaliser. There were maybe a few flurries that sort of concerned us, but I think it was pretty much right. We need to buck our ideas up here and get another goal. All of those shots, Dan, so wasteful in front of goal. We had to bring on Enciso, Undav, and Facundo Buonanotte to help the cause and add a bit more prowess going forwards. Estupiñán came off and Solly moved to left back. So as you say, Eamonn, about Ethan Pinnock, where do you want him to play? I think that's very much the case with a couple of our players, such as Solly March. He can play either left back, right back, either wing, and as well for Pascal Gross, who was literally everywhere on the pitch yesterday. He even played a stint at right back.
Did he get a booking yesterday, Pascal Gross?
I can't remember, but I can check for you now.
Yeah, I've got the paper here.
Yes, he did.
He did. Because
in the 94th minute.
Yeah, the referee kept his cards in his pocket, didn't he?
He did. He did, to be fair.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the referee and VAR in a minute, because there was a slight contentious moment at the end of the game. But let's talk about the penalty and the VAR decision that led to the penalty. I watched the highlights back again, and as soon as it happens, Hickey's got his head in his hands. He knew what he'd done and the penalty's given. But it takes a good few minutes to reach that decision, but we did get the right decision, in my opinion. Dan, what was your view? Because obviously you saw it on the TV, and I didn't really have any idea what was going on in the ground. But what was there instant sort of let's look at that again on the replays, or did it take a while?
Yeah, I mean it's I don't know if the ref would have gone over to check. I mean, obviously VAR would have looked at it anyway, but pre-VAR, I don't know if the ref would have even entertained the idea had everyone not complained so much. It was very clear from all the protests that they all thought there was a valid case for penalty. Commentators, upon seeing the replay, said that's a penalty. I don't know why it took so long for it to be awarded. Basically, once if VAR can see it, frame by frame from all those different angles, they can see it bash off the guy's hand. Unless they were potentially checking the distance, right? They could have been saying, was it too close for him to move his hand out of the way or whatever. But it's just frustrating at how long some of these things take. Yes, I think we got the right decision in the end, but I mean, how long are we going to look at the same replay over and over again? At that point, you have to say, is it clear and obvious?
And for it to take so many protests from the players for the referee to even twig that, oh, maybe I should speak to VAR. And I guess VAR always check things and they're always in the referee's ear. So, but here we are again, not knowing what's going on. So maybe, again, I'm going to put the cause out for maybe we should hear what they're saying, because then that would clear literally all of the qualms that we have, or 95% of the qualms that we have, in my opinion. Eamonn, what was the feelings amongst the Brentford fans when that check was going on?
Right, I can cover it up quick, absolutely, with 2 words. Stuart Atwell. He was the VAR official in Scotland.
Okay.
So that absolutely sums it up. I got the program in front of me here. As soon as I got into the ground, I looked on the back. Referee Michael Oliver, not the worst in the world. We've seen him a couple of times this season.
Yeah.
And assistant referees, 4th official, VAR official, the 2 words leap out at us. Stuart Atwell.
At that point, it's just head in hands.
The instant happened, and I won't lie, I've seen it again on Match of the Day. I'm not going to Arsene Wenger. I didn't see the incident. It was right down the far end from where I was. And you guys appealed so much, something's happened. At the time, we couldn't actually tell. When I see it on Match of the Day, it does hit his arm. He's doing that. It was let's go. It's a penalty. Save all that time, though. As soon as you get word in your ear, as soon as you hear the voice of Stuart Atwell, just give the frigging penalty. Save the 3.5 minutes, Stuart. It's not all about you. We want to watch the game of football. The game earlier today, West Ham Southampton. It might still be going on, might finish. The West Ham scored a goal. It took 3.5 minutes for VAR to come up with such an obvious goal.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I can confirm that game did end 1-0 between those two.
Okay.
So that's a shame for Southampton. Oh dear, what a shame. Oh, never mind. For me, I had no idea what was going on, just the same as you, Eamonn. But I was in our group chat, Dan, wasn't I? I was like, is it a penalty? Is it a penalty? Tell me, someone. And then when Alexis was stepping up to take it, I had my back to the penalty. I couldn't watch it.
You didn't watch it?
I could not watch it. I sort of turned, so it was in my peripheral vision, and I was just waiting for the response of the crowd. Because I didn't realize until I looked at the clock after he scored it how late on it was. Because I was just enjoying the football, because we can say, oh, this was crap, that was good, this was crap, but overall it was a fantastic game of football yesterday, and put on show to the world how well these two teams can play. And fighting for Europe as well. As I said at the top of the show, it is a must not lose for both teams, and we've got a game in hand against Bournemouth on Tuesday, which if we win that, this point against Brentford is in my opinion going to look absolutely fantastic. Dan, I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, if we win our game in hand, that puts us up to, I think, fourth or fifth, either way. But a point against Brentford is a good point. Before the game, I'd have been happy with a point. That's not the ambitious sort of mindset that a lot of our fans have, but ultimately Brentford are a really strong side. So, Tony always scores against us. It's a really good point.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to touch on the second penalty incident too much, because again, it's going down that rabbit hole of what's clear and obvious, what's the distance, what are the rules. So I just come to you quickly, Dan. Penalty or no penalty?
If we're going off the precedent set by the first penalty, I think the second was a stronger shout.
Okay. Fair enough. Eamonn, what was your views on it?
again, right down the other end. I've subsequently seen it on Match of the Day.
Yeah.
I'm not just going with them, and obviously I'm a Brentford supporter, but he was trying to pull his hand out the way. The distance, I couldn't tell how close or whatever it was. I'm going all Arsene Wenger on you, but he was pulling his hand that way, sort of thing. So obviously I didn't want us to lose. So correct decision.
Fair enough.
You got a corner out of it, didn't you? What more do you want? Come on.
Yeah, we did. But
you're good at corners.
So bloody good at corners. I was so excited. We were guaranteed to score from that. As I said, I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole because with VAR, it's so contentious whether I could sit here and say yes, Stonewall penalty, and as you say, Eamon, there's so many different outlooks on what's clear and obvious, what's in the rules of the game. So I think that's fair enough to leave that one there.
Yeah, you don't like to celebrate when the ball goes in the net because 3.5 minutes later, some idiot at Stockley Park will have told you it's not a goal or something.
Or in some cases, Dan, I'm sure you remember this one. In some cases, after the full-time whistle.
Oh God, don't remind me. I mean, how can that be allowed? Our players had left the field, I think, right?
They were leaving the field, and
they were leaving the field,
and then Manchester United got given a penalty.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, I remember
absolutely ludicrous. Yeah. And Dan, who are we playing in the FA Cup semi-final? And does that have VAR? Yes, it does. Good luck, Brighton.
I wonder who's the referee that day, though?
I have no idea. I don't know if it's been allocated yet.
Yeah, it's not till later this month, is it?
Yeah, so
yeah.
No. But I think that pretty much sums up the game. As I say, two teams absolutely fighting for their lives and what they want to achieve this season. Two teams that are really, impressive from both ends. But Eamon, as you say, we don't like the loving too much. So I'm going to say it. Brentford are rubbish.
Yeah,
don't like them.
Yeah. 3 offside goals you scored yesterday, including that penalty.
I know. Bloody terrible.
In the goal. Come on.
Clearly offside. Absolutely. But honestly, Eamon, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure to get a perspective of a very down-to-earth fan. So it's an absolute pleasure. Dan, before we leave, I want to get your predictions for Bournemouth, please.
My prediction for Bournemouth, right? Okay.
Yeah.
They won yesterday. They beat Fulham.
They did.
And did Fulham, us a favour.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. It keeps us in the running for Europe. I mean, I think it'll be quite tight. I think it'll be a lot tighter than a lot of people may think because Bournemouth typically play quite well whenever they're playing us. I can't remember having beaten them really very frequently. So I'm going to go 1-1, maybe 2-1, a really close 2-1 to us, perhaps.
Oh gosh, I don't think my heart can take that. I said after the game yesterday when I was walking up the North Stand steps, some lady said, this club will be the death of me. And I said, I think I've aged about 15 years. Have I gone grey? But it's what it is. Eamon, who have Bournemouth? Who have Brentford got next?
Manchester United on Wednesday.
Of course.
So I'm going up to Manchester.
Well, I know we're all fighting for the same goal, but I do hope you beat Manchester United. So yeah, good luck in Manchester.
Thank you. Well, they're one of those teams who've got a few more games to play. Are they still in Europe? Or are they out of Europe? I don't know who's in Europe.
They are still in Europe, I believe, in the Europa League.
Yeah, Europa League.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because they're playing a Europa League game before our FA Cup semi-final. That's why we were allocated the Sunday. And to give them more rest because we want to be nice to them like that. We want to give them at least some chance of beating us, We're so nice. But as I say, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Dan, thank you so much for coming on for your first appearance. Eamon, thank you again. It is our 100th episode today. So yeah, lots of celebrations in the comments below. Thank you guys for joining me for that. And we will see you next time. So wherever you are, Tom, I've messed up your Tom's our usual host, Eamon, and I've just absolutely messed up his outro that he normally does. So I'm just gonna he will be. It'll be in my inbox saying what the was that. But here we are. I'm just gonna say see you next time, guys. Bye.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Lovely.